guys, today we're going to be putting a 2-inch bracket lift on my kid's Outlander 450. This is a bracket lift from High Lifter. It's basically just relocates your shock mounting, upper shock mounting locations, so it'll actually push your A-arms down a little bit more and give you a little bit more lift. The lift comes with a rear bracket, basically, that goes all the way across your rear on each side, and then your front bracket, larger bracket, and then your two small brackets that go on the other side that your shocks will hook to, and the other two brackets. It also comes with 5 different size spacers. Be sure that the instructions are really thorough. I like the instructions, they're pretty good. It tells you exactly which spacer to use, and it actually has it marked on the spacer, like 4X and there, so on. And then it gives you, I believe it's 12 bolts, 8 flat washers, and then the lock nuts for that also. So we got the parts laid out here, kind of like it says in the instructions. Cool, it gives you a couple cool stickers too. So, but anyway, first of all, we're gonna take off the tires. We're gonna start with the front. We're gonna take the tires off the front, and then take off your inner plastic fenders with a bunch. I think it's like 5 push pins on each side. We're going to be doing that now. All right, guys. Now we have the front tires off and the inner fender. Be sure when you jack up the machine and you keep it stable. Put some jack stands under it, whatnot. And also stick around to the end. I got some side-by-side comparisons of a 450 machine with the lift on it and without. That way you can see the height difference and everything like that. Again, and also subscribe to our channel for more kind of installation videos, rides, stuff like that. But anyway, okay, what you're going to do next is underneath the left side of the machine is your front differential breather tube. So basically, this is the breather tube. I've already moved it because when it goes from your differential vent line, it goes up here, up this, and then it goes through this hole right up here that we're going to have to take, that's going to be used for the bracket. So you just got to basically take it off of your differential, or this one only goes to right up here under the hood, if you are under the console thing. If you don't have the snorkel kit already, you just pop that off and you can pull it down kind of and fish it right back up through to where you want it. So what you do is just run it right behind that part of the frame that it was on the front side too. Like I do have it here, it goes right up through there, right up to the top. So basically the first thing you do is relocate this vent line, which is really easy. The next thing you do is you'll take the upper shock mount bolts, basically the bolt out of your upper shocks. I went ahead and did both sides. I'll go ahead and do this side and the other side. Just take it out, pull it out a little bit. You can push down on your A-arm and it'll kind of stick it up and under here. That way you can get in here to work. All right, now that you've taken your bolt out of the top of the shock, by the way, that's a 15 millimeter head and nut, so it's a little hard to get to the other one. This one's not too bad. But anyway, take that bolt out and you just keep it as a spare or whatnot, because you're going to actually replace that bolt with one that High Lifter provided. All right, now you're going to take the thicker, shorter bracket that they send you, and you're going to take it, and you're going to stick it right up through there. It's got a cutout in it basically for the little channel piece. And you're going to take basically one of these bolts, and the hole that you just removed your shock from, go ahead and stick it through there like that. It's going to hang. That way, unless you have 2 people, one to hold it, that way you just stick it through one side for now temporarily. Then we'll go back to the other side and go ahead and put the spacers and everything on it. All right, now that you've stuck the bolt in that side, you're on this side. What you do is you take the spacer marked SS, and it's going to fit you're going to hold your bracket up, and this spacer is going to go right in between your bracket and the factory ear from where the stock or the shock mounted, your factory ear there. Stick the bolt through, and you're going to stick your spacer through there. You can probably have to hammer it up in there because it's a really tight tolerance, which is good. And once you put your bolt through the bracket and the ear, you're going to take this small spacer, which is 18S, and put it on the back side. There's like a little flared side on the factory ear, so what this does is going to make it flat for the next piece. And then you're going to take your small 18N front bracket with the curved side up like that and put it on the end of the bolt also. Put your bolt through there like that. This is the tightest section. It's right here at the radiator where it comes out and everything, so it's kind of a pain to get to. So basically now it's just kind of hanging on the end of the bolt. You're going to put your nut on the end of it. You just hand tighten it. It's kind of hard to get to, like I said, so you may have to kind of back it, pull it out a little bit, and be sure you get it started correctly, not cross-threaded. All right, I have that. So that's kind of hanging there like that. All right, now you take your next bolt and your 4X wide spacer. Basically, this is the longest spacer that you have. And you're going to hit the same way. You're going to put it through this bottom bolt here. You're going to put your spacer on the end of that, like that, and then flip it down and hit this hole right there. And you're going to put a nut on the end of it. Okay, so you have your two back bolts in there, and now you have your new shock mount ears to go here. So just leave it kind of finger tight. You can tighten it a little bit if you want to, but you might need this to move. So now we're going to take your stock or your shock and push it back to here. Take your next bolt. All right, and you're going to actually, I believe this one you have to so this one is going to go through here, start through there, and then you're going to take this other small, thin 18S spacer, and it goes on the outside. It goes to the front of the machine. So you'll stick that through there like that. So the spacer will be on the front, and you put your nut on the end of it. All right, now that we've got all the bolts in and just finger tight, we can go back and tighten everything. I would start with that top first bolt you put in. Go ahead and tighten that one, and then the one below it, and then I would tighten the shock bolt, the one that's got the shock part to it. The new hardware is 17 millimeter instead of 15 millimeter heads. All right, after you get that side tight, basically come to the other side and do the exact same thing. Put your spacer in with the bracket. You can take your bolt back out, put your spacer in, bolt through there, small spacer on the outside, and then your nut. The hole above or below there, bolt, longer spacer, nut, and then you push your shock back through, put your bolt, your shock, and then your small spacer goes through the small front bracket and the nut. On the shock mount, just be sure that the little skinny spacer goes toward the front of the machine on the side that the small bracket is on. So once you get that all together and hanging tight, just tighten all that up and you'll be done with that. Then you just take your inner fender, slide it back in there and put it back with your push pins in it and your tires back on, and you're good to go with the front. All right, now we're on to the back. Basically just jack it up like you did the front and take the tires off of it. And the first thing we're going to do is to remove the top shock bolt for the shock. It's also 15 millimeters, so you just put your wrench on this side. Once you get this bolt out, you're going to use new bolts on the top so you can dispose of this or keep it for a backup for some other time. It doesn't say that you need to remove this, but what I would do is I'm going to remove the bottom shock bolt also. Remove the shock. It's easier to get this bottom bolt in because the shock's wanting to extend than it is to try to get the top in. So I'm going to take the bottom shock bolt out and remove the shock. Go ahead and get your brackets on there, and then we'll put the tops back in and then get the bottom in. All right, I have both shocks off. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to have to cut these because actually I can probably go behind them with that bracket. Grab the long. All right, next we're going to take this long bracket here and it's going to go right over top. So I'm going to try to go behind his rock-like wires. Like so, and that'll line up there. What we do now is we take your bolt, goes back to the eye, and then you'll take your, I believe it is 4Y. You're just a little bit smaller of the last 4 ones, and then you'll stick that basically through the stock location. Bolt through like that. Then you take this plate with the groove side down like that, and then you put your nut on there. All right, go ahead. Now what I do is I'll go to the other side and repeat the exact same thing. All right, next you're going to take your shock, put it back in the same way. I'd like to put the bolts back in the way they came out, so just so I don't mess up or forget any bolts, but I will take it out for the time being right there. So you're going to take your shock, it's going to go right here. So we'll take your washer. And then you're going to take 2 flat washers are going to mount on each side of the shock. So you're going to put 2 flat washers on this here. And then your shock. You can grab 2 more flat washers that it comes with and put it on the other side of the bolt. And then just feed it through the front small bracket like that and put a nut on it. So everything's going to be going from the back to the front, all the heads of your bolts here and the nuts on this side. And then you take 1 more bolt, your last spacer, and it's going to go under here. Okay, now see you've got to actually push your shock back in to get it back in here. This is definitely going to be easier than trying to do it up here, so that's why I took the bottom. The instructions do not say to remove the bottom, but the first one I did, it's a lot easier to get this back in than it is to try to get that bolt in with the shock tight. So here, you might, if your shocks are weak enough, you might be able to just push them up in there. But this is a pretty new machine, so what I'll do is I'll use kind of a screwdriver, pry bar, okay, so that's in there. All right, now since you got the bolts back in here, all the bolts in here, do the same to the other side and then go ahead and tighten everything up. I'd start with this top bolt, that bolt, and then this one and this one, or you can do this one first, it doesn't really matter. So tighten all 4 of these bolts up and on both sides, and you're ready to put the tires back on. That's the whole rear, that's the rear lift of it. All right guys, we finished the lift, the 2-inch lift from iLifter. And what I would recommend, anytime you lift a machine, even if it's 2 inches, you need to kind of offset that as far as width, or it's going to, you're going to raise your center of gravity, it's going to make it a little more tippy. So what I would do is I would either go with offset wheels to kind of to spread it out a little bit more, or use wheel spacers. His ATV, the tires are still new and they're 12, so we're going to use they're on the factory tires, so I just ordered a set of 1-inch wheel spacers. Basically that gives you 1 inch on the one side and 1 inch on the other, makes it 2 inches wider. Camden's, he has offset aftermarket wheels, so the offset's different, which is wide already. This will bring it to about the same width as that, which is about stock width or a hair wider. Because when you raise this, it squeezes the tires in a little bit and makes it more narrow. You can get these on Amazon. We'll put a link at the bottom. These are just cheap, they're aluminum wheel spacers, so they work. But a lot of companies sell it, but I'll put a link. So we're just basically gonna put the wheel spacer on, and they bolt straight to your hub here, and then these new studs that are in the wheel spacers will bolt to your tire. You do need a thin-walled 17 millimeter, or whatever size they come with, to get in between this groove here to tighten those. I'd recommend putting a little bit of thread lock on your factory studs, just so these hold in there good. But we'll slap these babies on there and put the tires back on it, and this thing will be ready to go, and we'll show you the picture before and after as far as size like that. So anyway, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you next time.